if you're listening, you almost certainly depend on goods moving constantly. I mean, whether you actively think about it or not, this whole logistics network, it's really the backbone of commerce.
Absolutely. It's like this huge, sprawling web, isn't it? Highways, bridges, ports,
So
rail.
rail links and now even things like charging stations are part of that web.
That's right.
So today we're doing a deep dive into the master plans that shape this web. Major infrastructure bills. These are, enormous pieces of legislation,
Yeah.
billions
It's
involved.
huge sums. Yeah.
And our mission is really to pull out the key insights, understand how these bills act as the blueprint, basically, for building, repairing, upgrading all these vital freight pathways.
The essential roadmap.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when we say infrastructure bills, what are we actually talking about?
Fundamentally, they're laws, right? Laws passed to allocate just massive amounts of public money for public works.
Okay, so roads, bridges.
Ports, railways, the power grid, broadband too sometimes. It's broad.
But for you, our listener, focused on logistics, trucking, why do the nitty-gritty details of these laws matter so much?
Oh, it's fundamental. It boils down to this. The quality of that infrastructure. That is your operating reality,
Right.
your bottom line, often.
How so?
Well, think about it. Poor roads, congestion. That means slow travel times. Fuel costs go through the roof.
Vehicle damage, too, I bet.
Absolutely, wear and tear. And then there's reliability, or rather, unreliability. Deliveries get delayed. It's chaotic.
Okay, so that's the downside. What's the flip side? Modernization.
Modernization opens up completely new strategic advantages. We're especially interested, based on the sources, in how these bills really target efficiency in what they call the first mile.
Goods moving from, say, factories to ports.
Exactly. And then that critical last mile, getting things from the warehouse right to the customer's door, that final step.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the most sort of tangible changes, the physical stuff, the actual
Yeah.
roads and bridges.
Yeah.
What do the sources tell us about how these bills literally reshape the network?
Well, what's really fascinating here is it's how these seemingly small fixes, these micro fixes, can create these huge macro shifts in efficiency.
Okay.
The most immediate thing you see is fixing bottlenecks, chronic ones.
We all know those stretches of highway.
Exactly. Those ancient bridges or weak road segments, the ones that force trucks onto these long, costly detours. Burns time, burns fuel.
So fixing those just opens up the direct route again.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Reopens efficient paths. That's a quick win. But the investment really goes into two main physical areas.
Which are?
First, just more capacity. Adding lanes to existing highways, building new bypasses, or even whole new highway sections.
Creating new arteries for commerce, basically.
Precisely. That fundamentally changes traffic flow on high-volume freight routes. It can create main routes where none really existed before, effectively.
Interesting. But I saw something in the sources that surprised me. It wasn't just adding lanes. It was structural, but existing infrastructure, specifically bridges.
Ah, yes. That's a really key technical upgrade, strengthening bridges.
What does that actually do for freight?
It means they get re-rated for higher capacity, higher weight limits.
So heavier trucks,
Ah.
fuller loads, legally.
Exactly, legally. Think about the ripple effect. If a key bridge on a major corridor had a weight restriction,
Right, trucks had to go around or carry less.
they had to lighten the load or take a massive detour. Huge cost implication. Now, if that bridge is strengthened, they can run full, heavier loads, maximize their load factor.
Which instantly cuts the cost per ton for that specific route.
Overnight, it completely changes the economics for regional supply chains using that path. Huge deal.
Okay, so that hits efficiency, hits cost directly.
Directly. And there's another factor we have to mention, resilience.
Resilience,
Yeah.
as in against weather.
Yeah, a lot of these projects are specifically designed now to be, say, flood resistant or just generally more durable against extreme weather.
That sounds like, long-term planning.
It is, but for a logistics manager, knowing your main route is less likely to wash out or be shut down for days after a big storm, that adds operational reliability.
Predictability.
Exactly. That predictability is, well, it's priceless in this business. That physical certainty is fundamental.
Okay, so if physical reliability is priceless, what about reliability between different ways of moving goods? It sounds like these bills, they're about much more than just roads. There's a big push into technology, into intermodal connections.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, these aren't just highway bills anymore. They're really aimed at updating the entire network.
How so?
Well, a significant chunk of funding goes into updating something called state freight plans.
State freight plans, what are those exactly?
They're basically the state's priority list. their wish list for infrastructure projects that are specifically meant to help freight movement.
Okay.
And what's crucial now is that these plans require more input from the industry, from trucking firms, about where the priorities should be.
Ah, so the people actually moving the goods get to point out the real pain point.
Precisely. And then the grants, the money flows to support projects that actually connect different modes of transport.
Like what kind of projects?
We're seeing big investments in new intermodal terminals, places where freight switches between trucks and trains.
Hmm.
Also, dedicated roads just for port access to bypass local traffic.
Oh, that's smart.
And specialized connectors, rail truck transfer points. The real emphasis is on improving those links, making true intermodal transport seamless.
Which changes the role of the truck, doesn't it?
It really does. In that kind of optimized system, the truck isn't necessarily doing the whole long-haul journey. It
Right.
becomes more specialized. Maybe it's the highly efficient feeder service, taking containers to the rail hub. Or it's the last-mile mover, taking goods from the terminal to the final warehouse or store.
That specialization, enabled by better connections.
It's a massive efficiency booster for the whole supply chain. Huge.
And what about the tech side? Electrification is a huge topic.
Yeah.
How do these infrastructure bills actually help get more electric trucks on the road?
They create the essential conditions. The bills specifically fund the build-out of charging stations, but strategically along high-use highway freight corridors.
Ah, so targeting the routes where they'll get used most.
Exactly. And that immediately de-risks the investment for trucking companies. It makes buying and using electric trucks feasible, but maybe only on those specific designated routes where the charging is guaranteed.
Removes the range anxiety issue, at least for those corridors.
Pretty much. If the government helps ensure the next charging depot is reliably there, it changes the calculation.
Okay, before we get into the wider economic ripple effects, there was something else in the sources. Not about roads or tech, but about the drivers.
Ah, yes. Driver welfare.
Safety mandates, funding for things like better truck parking, more rest stops. That seems aimed right at the driver shortage and parking issues. How does fixing that human element factor in?
It fundamentally shapes routing decisions. It's not just a nice to have.
Really? How so?
Safe, available parking directly translates into being able to comply with hours of service rules. That's non-negotiable for safety and legality.
Of course.
So companies will naturally start preferring routes, optimizing for corridors, where they know their drivers can legally and safely take their required breaks. It gives those well-funded corridors another distinct advantage. They become the preferred routes for operational reasons, too.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've established gains in efficiency, reliability, even driver support on certain routes. Let's connect this now to the bigger picture, the competitive landscape. What are the main takeaways for our listener about the wider ripple effects, the dollar side?
Okay, first, the obvious gains. Smoother, more direct routes, that cuts fuel use, cuts maintenance needs. That directly boosts profit margins. Simple as that.
Lower operating costs.
Right. But the less visible, maybe even more critical gain is predictability. Improved reliability in deliveries. That lets companies handle more volume, more throughput, and it builds huge customer trust. That's invaluable.
Okay, cost and trust. What else?
Second big one is risk mitigation. We talked about resilience reducing weather disruptions, but just fixing critical infrastructure, like that old bridge we mentioned.
Prevents a sudden closure.
Exactly. It minimizes the chance of a catastrophic, sudden shutdown that just brings commerce to a grinding halt with zero warning. That stability is incredibly valuable.
But hang on. If we're pouring billions into creating these new, super efficient freight corridors, optimizing certain routes, doesn't that automatically put older areas, existing logistics hubs that maybe aren't on those new prime roads, at a disadvantage?
It absolutely does. That's a key point.
Does this investment literally shift the economic map, determine who wins and who loses geographically?
Without a doubt, it completely reshapes the competitive landscape by changing geographic importance. These new freight superhighways, they don't just move goods faster, they change where the ideal location for a key logistics hub actually is.
So companies might move?
Companies might look at relocating massive fulfillment centers, their distribution facilities, specifically to be near these new optimized corridors or near the new charging infrastructure for electric fleets.
And if your business relies on fast transport, but you're not near that new main artery?
You're suddenly facing higher costs to connect to it, higher transfer costs, a definite competitive disadvantage.
Wow, that's a huge geographic risk.
Is there also a risk related to company size? Do these big investments tend to favor the larger corporations?
The sources strongly suggest that's a real danger, yeah.
Why?
Larger companies generally have more capital. They can more easily afford the big, costly upgrades needed to take advantage, especially things like transitioning fleets to electric trucks or investing in the sophisticated tracking and routing tech.
So they can jump on the benefits faster.
They can adopt earlier, capitalize on the new infrastructure first, and that could give them a significant competitive edge over smaller firms who might struggle financially to make that transition or meet new compliance standards as quickly. Okay, so for you, the listener, maybe running a logistics operation or involved in the industry, needing to future-proof, what are the practical steps? What should firms be doing now based on these blueprints being laid out?
Well, based on this analysis, the very first step has to be really aggressive monitoring and being ready to adjust. You can't just wait and see.
No, you have to be proactive.
Firms need to constantly track these infrastructure plans as they develop, look for specific grant opportunities tied to these bills, and be ready to adjust routing strategies, maybe even network designs, almost immediately as new roads or corridors open up.
And that connects directly to investing in technology. It's not just about potentially buying electric trucks down the line.
What tech specifically?
Equipping the current fleet with advanced telematics. That's the systems tracking, vehicle location, performance, optimizing routes in real time.
Using data to find the best paths. Exactly. And advanced routing software to actually leverage these new, smoother, more predictable paths. You need that data, not just to be efficient, but to prove the efficiency gains and justify future investments internally.
Okay, monitoring, tech investment. What else?
Second big area is compliance and just being ready. Investing now in meeting safety standards, emission standards.
Getting ahead of the curve.
Right. Being ready for those electric corridors might mean more than just buying trucks. It could mean forming partnerships now with utility companies or charging network providers. Don't just wait for the government to build every single station.
Proactive partnerships, that makes sense.
And finally, collaboration is vital. Remember those state freight plans we talked about? The ones influenced by industry input?
Yeah.
Firms need to be actively partnering with their local governments, with ports, with rail operators, with industry associations. Be present. Be vocal.
To make sure their needs are heard.
To ensure their priority routes, the infrastructure they need, gets represented in those crucial plans. That secures long-term advantages your competitors might completely miss if they're passive.
So, bottom line. Firms need to prepare financially for some disruption during this transition, but also position themselves to grab the new opportunity these huge blueprints create.
Absolutely.
These infrastructure bills really are. They're the roadmap for modernizing our entire transportation network. The choices made now, the roads, the bridges, the tech we install, they're going to shape how freight moves for generations to come.
And maybe as you think about how all this spending reshapes the map, here's a final thought to consider. This long-term trade-off that seems inherent in the plans. We're prioritizing efficiency, speed, these new main arteries, right?
Right.
But what happens to those older routes? The ones bypassed? The ones that inevitably receive less ongoing maintenance, less investment? How does that lack of focus potentially influence the cost of goods or even the accessibility of basic services in those, underserved areas down the road?
That is a really provocative question. The future of equitable commerce in a world optimized for speed. Definitely something for you to chew on as this future unfolds. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.